Hi, my name is Neil Demery, and I would like to welcome all of you to the inaugural video of Watering Eye Productions. Behind the camera is my wife, Spring Stiles, who is my cameraman and also my producer. Once again, my name is Neil Demery, and I am a freelance copywriter and a playwright. Three of my plays have won top awards, and they've also been produced. I am also an aspiring novelist, and I've recently completed my first novel, which is entitled Visions of a Watering Eye. I like to call it an undersea fantasy, something different, and I think you're all going to enjoy it. The novel has not yet been published, but I've had quite a few people read it, and it's been very well received. So what we're going to do is we're going to read the book to you chapter by chapter and here in the coming weeks. So without further ado, chapter 1 of Visions of a Watering Eye. The view ahead was one of shimmering waves like heat rising off a sun-soaked beach, and the large hulking shadow was now coming into focus. When she first spotted the shape in the distance, she was accompanied by Spring, who refused to let her go any closer. There was fear in Spring's voice as she parroted the words of the elders. It is forbidden to approach the sleeping giant. The elders have decreed that none shall go near. Bridget knew that her young guide could not stop her if she decided to explore the black shape on her own. Few could match her speed and agility in the open water. She looked into her friend's eyes, and seeing the fear within, well, she decided to abandon her quest for discovery at that particular time. On this day, Bridget had slipped away while Spring was hunting for seahorses outside the west wall of the battery. Her powerful kick allowed her to cover the distance to the black shadow very quickly. She hoped to satisfy her curiosity and be back before anyone began to worry. As her sharp eyes focused on the darkness, she could see that the shadow was taking on a distinctive shape. She slowed her kick, approached with caution, taking a high, wide arc to the right of the structure. While the mass seemed totally foreign, at the same time it started to jog something in her past memories. Something which up to this point had been fading very rapidly. Aquatic lives of all types were slowly engulfing the World War II aircraft carrier, which was now in its second life as an artificial reef. Marine animals were busy staking out their territories, and a multitude of sponges, corals, and algae were calling the steel hull home. Bridget kept her distance as she circled around to the carrier's far side. It was the single largest thing she had seen since her life crossing. She knew she was breaking the rules by journeying alone, but a burning desire to explore her new world, it simply could not be quenched. The young mermaid had adapted to her body much quicker than most. After only 2 months, Bridget was already one of the most powerful and adept swimmers in the battery, a fact that was not going unnoticed by the elders. The edges of her scales were just starting to take on the iridescent gold hue of a fully indoctrinated member, while the greenish blue of those newly crossed was fading quickly, as quickly as the memories of her past life. This transformation was also ahead of the norm. Since her crossing, it seemed as though all of Bridget's progress had been ahead of schedule. A change from breathing air to water was a newling's first and most difficult transition. One crossed with an abundance of memories still intact, and a fear of drowning was strong in many. In a relatively short period of time, a set of complex body changes take place, and the emergence of a system allowing the body to take oxygen from water was only one of them. Once the breathing system was in place, the legs grow together to form the signature tail and rear fin, which is rapidly overgrown with aquatic colored scales of the new mermaid. New arrivals remain in a semi-conscious or a dream-like state until brain patterns are altered enough to accept these radical changes. For most, this dream state lasts anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks. Bridget was aware and fully functional in just over 7 days. The members of the battery had never seen anyone assimilate so rapidly. Bridget's curiosity was quickly overcoming her fear as she moved in on the carrier. As she took it all in, she could see the man-made structure, and memories of her old life came flooding back, many of which were pleasant and some which were not. She was now close enough to see the carrier's steel doors, ladders, and windows. Each element brought a different memory of the life she had so recently departed. She was so consumed by the things she saw and the feelings they brought, and she failed to notice the 3 torpedo-like shadows which inched closer to her from behind. Bridget found herself looking into the command center of the upper bridge. All of the great ship's glass had been removed, and she drifted into the once busy area. It had long since been stripped of any sensitive electronic equipment, but to the wide-eyed mermaid it was still a wonder to behold. As she looked around, memories of a large white room invaded her consciousness. It was a room filled with machines, blinking lights, and strange beeping sounds. Men and women floated through the room like ghosts drifting on a fog. They spoke in hushed tones as they stole sidelong glances at something beyond her sight. As she slipped further into her thoughts, Bridget began to realize that perhaps she was the focus of the room's attention. Drifting further into the trance of time past, Bridget was jolted back into reality by a deep, foreboding voice. A dreaming mermaid could end up food for thought. She immediately snapped out of her daydream and looked wildly around for the source of the voice, as well as the quickest route of escape. Stay where you are, child. To retreat without knowledge of your enemy's location could prove disastrous. The voice seemed as if it could be coming from any or even all directions at once. How could she have been so stupid? She was told never to venture out alone until she knew the territory like the back of her hand. An enemy could lurk behind any rock or emerge from any shadow. Bridget quickly decided to run was a fool's folly. If the creature had wanted to kill her, he probably could have done so by now. Excellent. You process information quickly. An admirable trait. Now that you have invaded my privacy, what do you think of my home? Is it not a marvelous structure? From wherever one speaks, the sound swirls like an eddy. It creates quite a disadvantage for those caught unaware. Don't you think? Bridget listened carefully for the source of the voice. Her hearing was acute, and she was beginning to discern a pattern in the echoes. She believed the source of the voice to be coming from one of 2 door openings to her left, but she was careful not to show her discovery by looking in that direction. She kept her back to the voice and scanned ahead for an escape route. Thinking of darting away, are we? Think twice, child, for I'm quicker than I sound. I would truly hate to end your life before it has barely begun. Something deep within her told her that he was probably telling the truth. As she pondered his words, Bridget's peripheral vision spotted movement outside one of the starboard side windows, the surprise of which made her flinch ever so slightly. Oh, I see you have spotted one of my associates. Your gaze is keen, and I believe if you look around, you will see others. So tell me, little one, why should I not see you as a spy and just kill you now? Struggling to keep her voice steady and strong, Bridget replied, I am not a spy. A predictable answer. Why should I believe you? Summoning all of her resolve, she answered, well, what kind of spy would be as obviously careless as I have been? If I am to be that inept at my spying, I would do no one any good, and therefore death is what I deserve. Oh, an excellent response, the voice chortled with delight. You're brave as well as quick-witted. These are traits which I admire greatly. Oh, I do apologize for not introducing myself. My name is Daniel. Daniel. The name struck fear in Bridget's heart. She had heard the name spoken with both contempt and reverence many times since her crossing. Daniel, the great tiger shark and fearsome leader of what came to be known as the Clan of Black Shadows. He had moved into the battery some 4 years ago. Upon seeing the position of the mermaid stronghold, Daniel immediately realized the desirability of where the sea women had made their home. The area was rich with marine life and food was plentiful. Various valleys and hills made for good cover, which made it easily defensible. His small but seasoned band of sharks was 40 strong, and they took advantage by attacking and sometimes killing mermaids who ventured away from the battery alone. The attacks eventually became bolder, which resulted in all-out warfare between the two factions. The mermaids themselves, they were excellent warriors, having learned through generations that to survive in such a harsh environment, regimented training and planned aggression when necessary, it was just a part of everyday life. After 2 years of sporadic attack and counterattack, both sides had sustained heavy losses and were weary of the fight. It was at about this time the United States Navy sunk the aircraft carrier, the USS Wasp, to promote the formation of an artificial reef. Daniel was delighted with the steel structure and decided it would make an excellent fortress for his army. After more than a month of tense negotiations, the Treaty of Nine was enacted and a boundary line was drawn. The last 2 years had been relatively peaceful, with only minor violations of the treaty, but the mermaids knew that Daniel would not remain content to stay on his side of the line indefinitely. The tiger shark is an extremely aggressive being, and when cunning and intelligence, such as that inherent in Daniel, were factored into the equation, only a bloody end could result. Summoning all of her courage, Bridget finally replied, I have heard of this Daniel. Oh, I have no doubt of that. I have knowledge that Tara, your witch queen, makes my name a large part of your indoctrinations. But now I am afraid you have me at a disadvantage. Would you do me the honor of telling me your name? I am Bridget. Bridget, I have heard of your name as well. You have made quite an impression in the short time since your crossing. How would you know someone so insignificant as myself? I have my sources, child. The ocean has many inhabitants. Beware to whom you speak. You never know when you might be speaking to me. So, he had so much as admitted that there were spies in the mermaid camp. Bridget knew the danger she was in, and she also knew she was at Daniel's mercy. If she had to be here, well, maybe she could garner some useful information. He seemed to enjoy the conversation, so why not try to take advantage? She realized she must proceed with caution, for Daniel possessed an intelligence and a worldliness that she could not match. She tried to speak casually. So, what do you intend to do with me? Well, I haven't decided yet. For now, I am satisfied to engage you in conversation. My associates are capable as well as loyal, but their gift for intelligent gab is, shall we say, less than refined. Bridget decided to be bold. This conversation would be much more personal if I could see who I am conversing with. Well, I imagine it would. Please forgive my rudeness, but I have not been this long-lived without being cautious. I'll tell you what, my dear, if you can tell me from where in this great ship I speak, I will reveal myself to you. Well, Bridget had figured Daniel's location some time ago, but appeared to ponder the riddle for a moment. She knew the more of an advantage she thought he had, the safer she would be. She answered as if it were a guess. Would you be inside the forward port side door? Should I say that was an excellent guess? Your powers of perception are acute, and at least you try to play the game. But as it may, I am a shark of my word. Slowly but deliberately, out of the door glided Daniel. He was a shark of massive size, with a fierce presence. His dark gray body was covered with scars from the many battles he had fought. His great white teeth were permanently displayed in the form of a manic smile, courtesy of his misshapen mouth. The large, straight dorsal fin, distinctive of the shark, had a large, jagged chunk removed at its backside close to the tip. A presence such as this would have sent any other young mermaid into a frightened stupor, but to Bridget this was nothing more than the vessel which carried the truly frightening being which was Daniel. But for what froze her blood were his eyes. These sharks have large, black, lifeless eyes, devoid of any emotion and character. Daniel's eyes were anything but. They were the color of a stormy sea, and if you were to look into them long enough, you could read volumes. They told tales of anguish, anger, and pain, but at the same time, they blazed with understanding and intelligence. These were the eyes of a formidable enemy. This was an enemy that would show no mercy, and one which would have the understanding and the capacity to enjoy a cruel victory. Do I look as you thought I would? I had not given thought as to how you would look, she lied. I do not believe your imagination to be that stagnant. Daniel moved a bit closer. So, you are Bridget. Rumor has it that your potential has few limits. Tara is getting older and her wits have dulled. I hear that Ronalda has her sights set on the throne, but I don't believe she has the necessary support to achieve her goal. What are your thoughts on this matter? These are questions better left to the elders, for I am nothing more than an ordinary mermaid. Oh, my dear, you are anything but ordinary. And if you truly do not realize this, then you would be the only one. Brace yourself, little one. Well, there is a storm coming, and when it blows, it will blow in all directions. Bridget thought on this for a moment and replied, I don't understand. Oh, you will, my dear. You will. Tell me, are your former life memories still intact? Well, some I have lost and some still remain. Daniel gazed deeply into Bridget's eyes before asking the next question. Do those which remain include from whence you came? Do you mean where I lived before my crossing? No, young one. Are you of the staff, the wheel, or the slab? Bridget was truly puzzled by this question. I do not know of such things. Daniel was satisfied she was telling the truth. If you are the one, you will soon know it. One of the patrolling sharks entered the bridge area and swam to Daniel. They conversed in hushed tones for a few moments. The patrol shark was dwarfed by the immense size of Daniel, who sent him back to his duties and resumed speaking to Bridget. It seems as though your young companion has come looking for you, and she remains just on the other side of our border. You would be smart to follow her example on your next foray. The Treaty of Nine asks that I not kill young ones such as yourself if they happen to wander into our territory. I don't believe you to be a spy. I will let you go on your way. This time. I appreciate the courtesy, and shall make it known to my elders, Bridget replied. Daniel started to swim, but stopped. You do know that it would be to my advantage to kill you now. You will someday be a formidable enemy, and I have no doubt that we will meet in battle. It will truly be a shame to kill you, but what must be, until we meet again. It was with these words that Daniel slowly swam into the bowels of the carrier. For some moments, Bridget watched the door through which Daniel had disappeared. She was digesting all that had transpired and was formulating a way to relate it to the elders. She was sure they would all be proud of her for garnering such information, possibly to the point where she would receive a commendation. She was startled from her thoughts by the sound of Spring's voice. Bridget, where are you? You must come now. For Spring to cross the border and come this close to the carrier, she must have been very worried indeed. After one last look at the darkened doorway, Bridget swam out of the bridge window to join her friend. She was waiting some 20 yards off the great ship's port bow, a distance Bridget covered in seconds. Spring was very distraught and looked as though she might cry, Bridget, you fool! Everyone is looking for you. I was sure this is where you would be, but I dared not tell anyone. What is the matter with you, girl? Spring, you won't believe who I've been talking to, she shouted with excitement. I know who you will be talking to. I'm to take you to see Tara and the Council of Elders immediately. Tara? I'm to meet with Tara? Oh, God, this has been an extraordinary day. First I meet Daniel, and now Spring cut off Bridget mid-sentence. Daniel? Did you say you met Daniel? Yes, and we had quite a conversation. Spring spoke as if in a trance. You spoke with Daniel, the leader of the clan of Black Shadows, Daniel, and you still live? The Queen will be so pleased with me, exclaimed Bridget. Suddenly, Spring's eyes widened. Bridget, look. Bridget turned toward the carrier, and she saw 3 shark sentries slowly advancing toward them. She took this as a sign that their presence was no longer wanted. Spring started to panic. Come now, we must leave now. With that, they both turned and started swimming for home. Bridget stole one last look at the carrier from over her shoulder. She knew that someday she would return to the great ship, but she had no idea in what scope or circumstances that would be. That's the end of chapter 1. If it's something you really enjoyed, please press the like button, share it with a friend, and subscribe to our channel. Thanks a lot.